Okay, this next point type is going to be a challenge. I've already attempted it a few times. And I'm using this reference here, this book, Southwestern United States, and I'm going to do the citrus side notch, which is a Pueblo Indian or a Pueblo side notch cluster point, right? Now, I did a few practice points. I broke one of them. These two survived. But these are nowhere near as thin as these are. So it looks like they're made on flakes, or they have a specialized pressure flaking technique, random technique, to get it that thin. And I think they're bifacially flaked. I don't see any mention of a unifacial flaking. So these are thick. Now I'm going to be using this as a pattern. The blades are pretty consistent in length. The width is variable, but these blades seem to be very consistent in length, right? And some of these might be even resharpened. Who knows? What these were used for, I have no idea. Seriously, I thought about it and thought about it. I see no practical application for anything other than maybe a poisoned arrow point. But you can put any style of arrowhead on a poisoned arrow. It doesn't really matter. So my last resort on this, no, not ceremonial. I think they're a test of skill. That's my final answer. And it is going to be a test of skill, for sure. Might be able to get that one in. Well, yeah, if I'm lucky I can get that, but I'm still within range. These two are smaller. I can probably use this. Okay. Now it says that they're made from gray and white fossiliferous chert. Right? So I'm thinking they're skinned off the outsides of the nodules. Unless there's some gray and white fossiliferous chert that I just can't get a hold of. This is Georgetown type flint, not heat treated. So the reason why I'm choosing it is because it's very strong. When it gets down to those very fine needle tips, it's good to have a raw stone because it is a lot stronger. Okay. Let's see what we can do. I'll do the rough shaping with percussion, indirect percussion. It's going to be quite tedious. So far, it's just a matter of very minute flaking. So I'm going to do a lot of talking, I suppose. A lot of narrating, so I don't fall asleep. That's your job. I don't know what I'm going to talk about, obviously. Well, not obviously. As usual. I guess I'll just ramble about something. Why would they make arrow points as a test of skill? You know, do you get a prize for being the most skillful? Do you get a pay raise? There's no prizes or pay raises that I can think of back in the day. Who knows? Prestige seems to be a common desire among cultures. You know, to be regarded as the best flint napper is not a small deal. So I guess that would be motivation enough to make these. It's a pretty big deal, especially when flint knapping is a valued skill in Stone Age societies. But with such small points, these have to be made by people with very good eyesight. So I don't see the elders, well, I would imagine that the elders were not going to be making these. So there might be competition amongst the younger nappers. As you get older, your eyes start to fail, right? So it would be counterintuitive to expect the elders to be making these. Oops. So, test of skill among younger nappers. Would it be better if I don't use percussion? I don't know. Could be, but it takes forever. I don't want to take forever. I'm doing some of these very delicate points in preparation for more delicate points. Yeah. Let's see, I was using raw chert for the hunting point video. This is very similar. It is Georgetown, but it's not the nice type of Georgetown. It's a little bit tougher, although it is very smooth on the surface. It's a little bit brittle, as you could see by the previous broken piece. That surprised me. I was being aggressive with it because usually it holds together. This raw stuff holds together pretty well usually. Can usually stand up to a lot of abuse. We'll see what happens. I didn't try to make a video just before this, and Kevin walked in the middle, kind of distracted me. And the piece that I was working on, yeah, I guess it did snap. I can't remember. Because one of them I just gave up on it because it was too raw. I mean, the stone was just too difficult to pressure flake and with such tiny tools. I went ahead and modified this flaker. It used to have a real fat handle. I just cut it down and sanded it instead of making another one. It's faster for me just to cut the handle down than to drill and insert another nail into another piece of wood. I mean, I got dozens of handles and pieces of wood, but I've got to fish one out that I'm not going to use for something else, and then drill the hole. Gotta go get my drill. Then I gotta cut the head off the nail. And I gotta file it down or sand it down to a thinner diameter. It's easier just to modify the handle. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. So, yeah, test of skill. That's one possibility that I haven't really mentioned very much far as arrowheads, making arrowheads goes, you usually think of them as utilitarian or some special meaning, like a magical meaning, or something for the afterlife as a grave offering. You don't usually think of them as a test of skill, but I see no other application for this type of point. Just my opinion. Now, what other types could fall in this category of made simply as a test of skill? Well, there's some hokum points that are very long and thin, extremely difficult to make. Those also could be tests of skill. Could be a cultural thing in this area, in the desert southwest. Where they had skill competitions or items made simply to show off skill. That's my theory anyway. Yeah, as this gets tinier, it's going to get harder and harder to use indirect percussion when I had to go to all pressure. To reduce the risk of breakage. Even though it'd be easier, I think, just to go through a bunch of flakes, it would take more time. Time. Don't have a lot of time. Okay, let's see. What to talk about? I have not been reading the books like I should be. So I can't share what I've read lately because I haven't read anything lately. I've got a lot of artifacts I need to show. And Guillermo, if you're watching, I need to talk about your artifacts that you sent me a long time ago. I've been hesitating to do those because I'm trying to figure out why some of those cores look like the way they do. Anyway, for those of you just tuning in, I have friends of mine that send me stuff to analyze, and I try to do it on video. Now, I don't know if I'll analyze the artifacts on this channel, and if I do analyze some artifacts, I'll give you a heads up on this channel. But I haven't forgotten. I have a lot of stuff I need to show. I'm just going to go ahead and do the best I can with the information I have and just get those videos put out. Just get those videos made. I got some ideas. Okay, so looks like these points were made with random flaking. And with that sort of thinness and smallness and delicateness, you can make them easier with sequential flaking. So maybe that's part of the skill. Do it with random flaking instead of sequential. That's even harder. So yeah, I'm doing sequential until I get to the final stage, I guess. I don't know, I might just make it sequential the whole way, because I don't want this to become an exercise in stress management. I want it to become a video that would satisfy some curiosity. And those of you who want to see it done with Abo tools, for those just tuning in, hoping that you're going to get a lot of natural tool material use, I don't know what to tell you. I have another channel for that. It's called Allergic Hobbit. Why do you have such a silly name for that other channel? Abo techniques are serious business. I mean, that's serious stuff. That's what archaeologists do. You shouldn't be naming your channel something silly. No one's going to take you seriously. Yeah, I think I did it intentionally because people were taking it so seriously. I mean, I don't want to talk bad about Abo nappers, but it's not a big deal. It's just a way to flint knap. Yeah, but it's the old way, the correct way, the way that will enlighten us. Well, the actual skill of flint knapping involves the use of whatever is available. You have to understand the flaking itself. That's the most advantageous thing in flint knapping, is to understand the flaking itself, not really what tools are you using. And even if we can demonstrate a way with the natural materials, we don't know if that's the way. Well, what about the flake signatures? You know, those tools make special types of flakes, right? You can tell it's made with a natural tool. Very unique flake characteristics for each tool, right? Well, yes and no. Sometimes yes, but most of the times no. I've said it many times, there's more than one way to make a flake. And sometimes you can tell. Sometimes it doesn't really mean anything if you can tell, because we have no evidence of exactly how it was made. There could be meaningful differences between how we do it and how they do it, even though we're using the same exact tools, which would be a tremendous coincidence. I'm talking about the shape of the tool. Do they swap between different sizes, or do they use one size? Do they sharpen the one that they're using? Or do they swap it out for another one? Do they depend on experts in during certain stages, or does the point get made by one napper the whole process through? Well, that's just splitting hairs. Doesn't really matter. That stuff is just extraneous. That's just complicating things. Well, I want to know, differences in the flaking. I want to know differences in how they are made, because that's the way you can learn the efficient way of doing it. You have to assume that somebody figured out a very efficient way of doing things, at least in some parts of the world or some parts of the country. And I'm sure they weren't all doing it perfectly. Some were depending highly on their skill with very insufficient tools, crude types of tools and that sort of thing. I want to know all the possibilities. That's the way I think it should be pursued, is to explore every possibility. Because in that way, even if we don't know we are correct, we may have found out the way it was done just by experimenting and coming up with many different ways. We don't know which way it was, but it's one of the ways we found it. That would satisfy me more than, well, I can see through my crystal ball of my guru crystal ball that it was done in a certain way, and I can see exactly how it was done. I don't care if they use different toolkits, or if not all nappers had the same toolkit. I can see how it was done. I don't want to trust that sort of insight, because to me that's ridiculous. Okay, so I'm not even close to being the right size, but getting there. Yeah, but I still want to see Abo. Just go over to my silly channel, Allergic Hobbit, and you'll see Abo. You'll see the Abo tools. And I did do one recently on this channel where I compared Abo tools or natural materials to steel. It's I don't know if it's the Katako Creek point. I don't know. Just look back and you'll see in the thumbnail the words iron and steel versus Abo written across. You might find it interesting, you might not. I found it highly annoying to make, because I was trying not to duplicate. I was trying to let the tools kind of show me the differences, but I kept, I don't know if it was me, right, wanting to keep the symmetry from side to side and forcing things to look the same, or if it didn't matter, just the tools were not something that mattered, and I was just using my technique, using my mental template to come up with a technique with each tool set that would match my mental template or the idea of how it should look. I tend to think that it doesn't really matter what tools I use, it's going to look the same. So I'm going to force them to look the same. I'm going to find a way for it to look a certain way, no matter what tools I use. I will find a way to make it look a certain way no matter what type of tool I'm using. And I think that bears repeating because I think that point is lost, or that logic or that insight is lost in a lot of analyses. Yeah, I'm liking this squishy roll, but it's so difficult to hold a piece so that it doesn't cut the hand or doesn't bridge and risk snapping in half. But flakes do run nicely without the interference of the pad, a hard pad anyway, without interference from a hard pad or hard surface. Okay. But I've got to come up with a way, and you know, I've been recommended to put a dowel in there or wrap it around something flat or whatever, but it just seems unnecessary. I just need to get my hand used to doing this. Let's see. Yeah, I still got room, but that was unfortunate. And that was the pad too, that it wouldn't have normally snapped like that on a hard pad. So I got to switch from hard to soft here periodically. When it starts getting delicate, I can't be using the soft pad. And yeah, I'm finding that I'm being very repetitive in my videos of what I say. But I'm also being repetitive on what I do. Unless I start going off on other tangents, talking about totally unrelated things, I think that's going to be... The unfortunate reality is I'm going to be very repetitive. In what I talk about. But believe me, I'm trying to look for something. I'm trying to look for things that are new in the artifact production aspect. Maybe come up with some new ideas myself. Try to come up with some new ideas on things. Okay, I'll continue on the next video.